welcome to the Source Material Comics Podcast. 11 issues of Swamp Thing. Mark Radlish thought it would be a good idea to jump in to Scott Snyder's new 52 rendition of Swamp Thing. I'm going to tell you, Scott Snyder, I don't mind him. We know him from Batman. He's wrote Batman for quite a while. These first 11 issues of Swamp Thing released in 2011. Like I said, written by Scott Snyder. Art's all over the place, like Victor Ibanez, Yannick Paquette, I think, did most of these issues. Marco Rudy is also a penciler in most of these. That's going to be your art style. It kind of varies every once in a while throughout these issues.
In the heart of the Louisiana bayou, amidst the tranquility of a life building homes, Alec Holland sought solace in anonymity, concealing his past intertwined with the mysterious Swamp Thing. Once a brilliant scientist, his tragic demise during swamp experiments birthed a duplicate, a new Swamp Thing, crafted by the enigmatic Parliament of Trees. Returned to life as his former self, Alec's serenity shattered when unnatural calamities unfurled across the globe, beckoning Superman to investigate their cause. Reluctant to reprise his role as the Swamp Thing, Alec sought refuge in a mundane existence, only to be ensnared by the encroaching malevolence of Seth, an avatar of the Rot, propagating death worldwide. Despite his protests, destiny wove its tangled web, drawing Alec back into the fray. As the Rot sought his demise, an unexpected savior emerged, Abigail Arcane, an old ally whose ties to the Rot hinted at impending discord between the primal forces. Their journey traversed perilous landscapes and encountered William Arcane, tainted by the Rot's influence, wielding death as a weapon. In a harrowing confrontation, Alec reluctantly embraced his link to the Green, unveiling dormant powers to thwart William's onslaught, momentarily subduing the burgeoning darkness within him. Amidst the Brazilian jungle, the Rot's agents threatened the Parliament of Trees, tilting the balance in favor of decay. The skirmish culminated in William's vile transformation of Abigail, a grotesque manifestation strengthened by the Rot. Alec's desperate bid to save her spiraled into a chaotic struggle, forcing a heart-wrenching retreat as Alec sought aid from the Parliament. Fighting against time and impending doom, Alec's plea to become Swamp Thing once more seemed futile until a glimmer of hope emerged, a remnant of the biorestorative formula. The concoction, triggered by Alec's essence, resurrected his Swamp Thing form, heralding a renewed confrontation with Seth. Swamp Thing, fueled by the Green, confronted the monstrous Abigail, endeavoring to salvage her humanity amid the clutches of decay. Amidst a battlefield of turmoil, he invoked seeds of life, coaxing Abigail from her corrupted state and triggering a momentous battle against Seth. Abigail, empowered by her inherent Rot abilities, aided in Seth's defeat, saving Swamp Thing from imminent demise. However, their respite was fleeting as the evil spirit of Anton Arcane, seeking vengeance from beyond the grave, threatened their sanctuary. Battling the nightmarish unmen, Alec found himself locked in mortal combat with Anton. In a pivotal moment, Abigail's intervention again turned the tide, gravely injuring Anton but foreshadowing his ominous vow of future retribution.
So, I didn't understand half of what I read.
Okay. Oh, it wasn't that bad. Come on. Were you going into this with an expectation of...
I went into it completely cold. I really didn't know what to expect. Essentially, it's a fight between the Rot and the Green.
Correct.
And Alec Holland, he is trying to not be Swamp Thing, but the Green is like, you must be Swamp Thing. And then there's this demon child, Rot kid.
It's William Arcane. It's Abigail's little brother.
He's possessed by the Rot, and they're duking it out, and Abby Arcane is there. And she is like, no, I'm a busy businesswoman who don't need no man. And I'm here to make sure that you fight the Rot. But I'm not into you.
I am the Rot.
And I'm not into you, Mr. Penis. And then it's seen later, they're making out on the beach or some shit. It was an interesting book. It's very colorful. The writing style reminded me a lot of Kevin Smith. And I kept thinking of like, Doom. There's a lot of words on this page. Too bad I'm not reading them. I was definitely speed reading through a lot of this book, and I don't know how well it was received by modern comic readers. I know for me, I think back to when we did The Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, and how much more coherent I felt the story was, how straightforward it was, and how I thought Alan Moore had some really interesting things to say about Swamp Thing. Where here, I feel Scott Snyder read the Alan Moore run, and he was like, I'm going to do that, and he's not nearly as talented as Fuck Firestorm.
Fuck Firestorm.
Walk Firestorm.
My understanding is, okay, we get this Alec Holland, which, again, I go into it probably knowing as much about Swamp Thing as you do.
Yeah.
We've read Swamp Thing together, and I don't think I've ever ventured outside of what we've read together and talked about. As far as the character, I don't know. But my understanding is this Alec Holland that we get here, the whole conflict that he has with becoming Swamp Thing and not becoming Swamp Thing, is that I think that he is the original Alec Holland that supposedly died.
Mm.
And
they mentioned that a few times.
And somehow he became resurrected. Actually, I think that's in the when Superman shows up, he's like, by the way, I'm kind of aware about what it's like coming back. So Alec Holland originally had died.
I died too.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. With Alec Holland originally died, and then the Green just essentially made a copy of him into Swamp Thing in his consciousness and all that weird esoteric stuff that happened, whatever. But now Alec Holland is back, and it's kind of a neat way to kind of start things off with a brand new series of Swamp Thing. We got Alec Holland, who may or may not be Swamp Thing. He's resistant to it. He's resistant to the hero's call, Mark Radlich.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because at one point, the Green, or the Parliament of Trees, I should say, which are the avatar of the Green, I guess, comes together and they're like, you need to become the avatar. You need to become the Swamp Thing. And he's like, no, I don't want to do it. And then a couple days later, Alec Holland comes back and he's like, hey, I want to do this. And they're like, you're too late. And there's a real sense of, oh shit, he done screwed the pooch. He's not going to get to become the Swamp Thing, but through some ingenuity and the biorestorative formula, he's able to recover and become the Swamp Thing and actually fight the evil avatar Seth of the Rot, along with William Arcane. And he also gets to rescue Abigail, after she was transformed into something scary. For 11 issues, really all we get is just this big back and forth battle between the Green and the Rot. I think the thing that stood out to me the most is the horrific art. Now, I'm not saying that the art was bad. I'm just saying it was...
Oh, it's definitely like that has a horror motif to it.
Oh, does it ever? It's body horror all over. When we're first introduced to the Rot, it's causing people to break their own necks and walk with their heads backwards on their bodies. It's pretty gross. But then I want to say the grossest thing has got to be the doctor who coughs up his own lung. And
God, yeah, that was rough. That's a rough panel.
It really is, because the guy starts coughing, and then a page later he's coming in and he can't talk because his lung is hanging out of his mouth. It's disgusting. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of body horror that's in here, and the Rot it's pretty fucking rotten. It's gross. As far as getting the series off to a new start, 11 issues is a long time to tell a kind of almost a story that would have really been told in probably 4.
I think that's what I was trying to say. I feel there wasn't enough story for the amount of issues it took to get there.
No, really, it's just a matter of, okay, am I going to be Alec? Am I going to be the Swamp Thing? No, I'm not going to be the Swamp Thing. I resist it. Okay, let's go hang out with Abigail for a little bit. And then you watch all this horror just take place across the southern United States, wherever it's at. And then at the end, it's Swamp Thing versus Seth. And when he becomes and embraces Swamp Thing, that's pretty cool. He grows wings out of his back and he flies off, and he's got shit growing out of his arms that becomes swords. The battle's pretty freaking epic. But I think really by issue 9 or 10, it's over with. I think it's by issue 9. His battle with Seth and William Arcane, Abigail's younger brother, is over with. Seth has been dispatched. And then these last 2 issues, 10 and 11, are just kind of tacked on here with the supposed return of Anton Arcane, which I think is their uncle. All the Swamp Thing fans out there are just yelling, how do you know Anton Arcane, you son of a bitch?
Oh, but please, get a life.
It was just, okay, this guy shows up, he's a bigger bad, and we only spend 2 issues with him. He's like, I'm going to get you, and then he gets beat, and he's like, I'll be back, I'll get you. That's the end. That's the end of Anton Arcane and his little arc. The strengths of this for me, I did like the body horror. I'll just say that it was pretty off-putting and it was gross. But I think that's kind of what, like you said, Alan Moore's, they leaned into that here. I think that is something, just like you said, they took that and ran and was just like, oh, we need more of this. And we're just going to paint the whole book full of this. But as far as the Green goes, the Parliament of Trees, Swamp Thing, Alec, Abigail, William, it's a fine story. It just seems like it was stretched out pretty good.
This is part of a extended recording session where we did Klaus, and then we did Not All Robots, and we spent a long time on both of those. And then why this one? This one was on my shelf, and I just hadn't read it yet. I got done reading it. My first thought was, I need to do a better job of editing some of these books before I ask Jesse to review them with me.
I'll tell you right now, when I saw 11 issues, I almost sent you a message. Like, you know what the fuck you're getting into here? But I read it in an hour and a half, 2 hours. It wasn't bad.
I was going to say, it didn't take me that long to get through it. The story itself was not that interesting to me. And I think that's my big takeaway from this. Is I saw it in the bookstore. I saw it was a self-contained. It looked like a self-contained graphic novel. And I'm like, all right, well, that works for me. And then I hadn't read it in God knows how long because I had bought it. I was like, okay, I'll ask Jesse to review it and that'll be fine. And then we do. And then I'm like, all right, I have to do a better job of picking books.
I want to make sure that doesn't matter too much.
Let me say
much
this.
to talk about.
I'm going to say this so you actually have a podcast here. I don't know. Maybe this will be 22 minutes. It'll be the perfect length. But I will say that it's almost like a damning indictment of DC and Marvel that half the time we review those books, there's not a lot to talk about. We can recite what happens in them, and we can kind of react to this was fun, this wasn't. But for the most part, this was Baby Darkseid. But for the most part, we never have the kind of conversations that we had with Mark Russell.
Right.
And we've done a couple of his books, and every time there's good conversations about them. We've done some other ones where the Archies and the Ramones, that was like a one-shot, wasn't even a whole graphic novel. And we had a really good conversation about music and all this other stuff. It's one of those where it's just like, I'm almost inclined to not want to keep doing any kind of like Marvel and DC. And next we're going to do some more DC, but that's besides the point. I think as I start to pick stuff, I want to be very careful about making sure I pick things to talk to you about that actually give us stuff to talk about.
Would you recommend this book to somebody that's a Swamp Thing fan?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I think I agree with you there. And again, how many times have we talked about the New 52?
There's plenty of books that I read, and I have fun reading them, and I don't need to talk about them. This
right.
is very much that book.
This is a New 52 book. A lot of the New 52 stuff was like, okay, we want to get you on the ground floor again, guys. We're rebooting everything, or at least starting new stories. And I kind of get that here. We do have a little bit of the past that's talked about with what Swamp Thing was prior to this, but it feels like a good starting point at least. We got Alec Holland finally embracing by the end of this to become Swamp Thing. He has this back and forth for quite a while and then finally embraces it. And therefore, our adventures shall start anew with this new Swamp Thing. And Abigail's got a new haircut. It's like, okay, we're starting fresh. So if you're a Swamp Thing fan, I think by all means, this is probably something. If you like Scott Snyder, I don't think this is horrible writing. In my opinion, I don't think it's that bad. You may be able to say, hey, this could have been a couple issues less. But regardless, I think it's a fine story to get you started out in a new rendition of Swamp Thing in the DC universe. All right. Let's get into plugs. What you got to say, man? What's going on?
All right. You can catch all of our shows on our website at w2mnetwork.com, our YouTube page, w2mnetwork.com, Twitch, w2mnetwork.com. I have a TikTok where I cut 10 minutes of any podcast that we do, put it up there along with my son's observational comedy and concert footage. That's at Mark Radulich. I'm also at Mark Radulich, LCSW on Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and I'm at Mark Radulich on X.
All right, very good. Check out the Source Material Comics feed on any podcatcher. You should be able to look up the Source Material Comics podcast right here. Mark Radulich and I come together every once in a while where we talk about comics at just about any era, and right here on the Source Material Comics podcast. Then you could go check out Unspoken Issues, where we talk about 90s comics. I love doing that. The Snap Material podcast, where myself and Evan Bevins get together and talk about the Marvel mobile game, Marvel Snap. It's a lot of fun. You can hear us battle live. You can hear us talk about the last season. We can talk about the upcoming season, some of the cards that we've unlocked. Lots of fun over there. With that being said, that's Mark Radulich. I'm Jesse Starcher. Stay safe, stay in the green. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.
I'm telling you, man, this fucking Swamp Thing book, I don't have a lot to say. This was not a good pick.
I can't even make a joke about the green. I'm trying, but I can't.
Jesse starts to smokes the green.
That's a good one. I'd go
Paging Dr. Green Thumb.
rounding up greenbacks.
There we go. I know, it's serious. Listen, will an artificial intelligence do a podcast with you where it just randomly breaks out into song?
That hasn't happened yet. I will tell
You know what it happened with Mocky.
Mocky Mock
That's right.
and his funky bunch.
Your girlfriend, Naked Mock. He will break out into a song.
OpenAI is in the process of imploding. There's one guy that's working there trying to keep the servers up. It's not looking good.
Oh my god, I can't wait for you to fucking break up with all your friends.
I don't care anymore. Everybody is just second to artificial intelligence right now.
I'm with you.
And when I say come together, I'm not saying
Right now, over me.
Straight, we did not synchronize ejaculation.
I wish.
It's fucking getting late.
Alan Parsons.
Alec Holland.
That's the one.
And then, of course, the Snap Material Comics podcast. Snap Material Podcast, where fucking shit.